Hiccups is the new runaway comedy smash sensation for the next generation. In a nutshell, it's a sitcom. Hiccups is a half-hour comedy about. It's kind of about the blind leading the blind. It's about a children's author who's emotionally very volatile, who seeks guidance from a less than qualified life coach, me. And so she's completely trusting that I'm a pro, and she thinks I'm going to cure her of all her ailments. And I think I'm going to also, but I really don't have the capacity. So it's really two individuals who kind of have no business working together, trying to find their way through life. Millie refers to her emotional outbursts as hiccups because she doesn't like the term issues. She doesn't like the term outbursts. She doesn't like any kind of clinical medical thing. She's gone through. She's been to psychiatrists. She's been to psychologists. None of them have worked. She didn't stick with it. She didn't like any of it. It's all very clinical and kind of mentally invasive, and Millie doesn't like that. So when she first hears about a life coach, this is something new. She goes to see Stan. It's all very surface and superficial. She likes that. She thinks this is the guy because it's all kind of, goofy 12-step stuff. Why, instead of being angry, why don't you whistle? Things like that. Very helpful advice. I find Millie to be a fascinating character. First of all, Nancy, who plays Millie, is one of the most naturally funny people I've ever met. Very comedically gifted. So that in and of itself is great. You could have Nancy playing whatever, a food clerk, and she'd be hilarious. An accountant, she'd be funny. But this character that she plays, Millie Upton, is I'm fascinated by her because she's, like I said, emotionally volatile, but her default setting is upbeat. She's very happy. She's a very upbeat, happy person. She wakes up in the morning raring to go. She wakes up ready to take on the day, see what the day entails. But the day usually entails encountering other people, and that doesn't go well. We all have a filter in our brain that says, boy, I'd like to boot that guy right in the neck for being such a jerk. I'd like to kick him in the ribs. But you don't, because society says you shouldn't, right? Millie doesn't have that filter. If somebody's being a real jerk and a tool, she's prone to letting him know. And for that, in that way, Millie kind of speaks on behalf of us. There are situations where Millie is saying what we'd all like to say to somebody. That guy taking 11 hours in the coffee lineup while people are lined up behind him. Who isn't aware that there's a lineup of people behind you, And so Millie speaks to those people on our behalf quite often. It would kind of in a way be fun to have a lunatic pal like that who could just shout at people on your behalf. And you could say, oh, no, hey, easy does it, but secretly be very happy about it. Yeah, Stan, he's just one of those guys. I mean, Stan, God bless him, he's got a big heart. And he really, truly, honestly wants to help people. And he really, truly, honestly believes that he can. If he's given the chance, he can help people. Even though he's broke, Stan's only made one good decision in his life. He's only had one good thing happen to him, and that's marrying Anna, his wife. Aside from that, his life has just been a series of kind of failures. But he, being a positive guy, that's one of the things that he thinks is going to make him a good life coach. He has a lot of failure behind him. He knows the pitfalls to avoid. He knows how to make you okay with failing. That's one of his things. Failing is simple. Water off a duck's back. Been doing it all my life. So he's just a good spirit. He's just not that sharp. If Millie was going to any other therapist or, psychiatrist, psychologist, doesn't work. She's too unique and there's nobody like her. Clinically, there's nobody and nothing like Millie. If Stan was trying to help anybody else, he wouldn't be able to give them a whiff of help. He's just too kind of incompetent, and how he looks at things is just too kind of strange and backward and upside down. But there's something about the two of them getting together, her unique character and her weird perception of things, and Stan's kind of backdoor ineptitude. There's something about the two of them. They're the only people who could help each other. She's the only one he could help, and he's the only one who could help her. And they've stumbled into each other. Joyce likes Millie. I think Joyce almost has a familial love for Millie. Aside from the fact that Millie rakes in a lot of dough for Haddison House, Millie is by far and away the most successful author at Haddison House. So, you know, Joyce would hang on to Millie just because she needs to. She needs the revenue. But you can tell with Joyce, it's more to it than that. Joyce is concerned about, you know, Millie getting in trouble from a very kind of, you know, big sister kind of thing. They have a great relationship, and I feel for Joyce. Joyce is very a character you sympathize with because she's kind of surrounded by incompetence everywhere she turns, and she's a very successful business person. She's very bottom line, no nonsense. She knows what's going on, and it just seems like everybody in her life, she's surrounded by incompetence, and she has to. You know, there's a lot of this with Joyce. Oh boy. So I think anybody can relate to that. You know, Taylor's all slick. He's very surface. Taylor is Millie's literary agent, and he's a good guy for her to have because she doesn't really need an agent. Millie's successful enough that she doesn't need an agent, so it doesn't matter that he has no skill or ability in this regard. He's all about wearing nice suits, looking good for the ladies, and you know, I always say that Taylor, you know, his plan A is to smile and plan B is to panic. There's really nothing in between with Taylor. Crystal is, you know, she's that spoiled rich girl that we all know. She grew up really, really rich. Her father's an international banker, probably hundreds of millions of dollars squirreled away. She grew up getting anything and everything she wanted. So she's that spoiled little rich kid. But you could tell she's a good person. If she just doesn't have a good framework of life. She doesn't know how much things cost or how things work. She's grown up in this situation where if you want something, it happens. And that's not a good way to grow up. Her father has realized that he's kind of raised this spoiled little rich girl who has no framework for life and how things really work. So he's kind of basically told her she's had to get a job and learn the value of a dollar and see how life works. You know, the character of Anna has to kind of not get things sometimes. She's smart and she runs her own business, but there's certain things that she has to not get. And Paula is able to play that. She's able to play Anna not understanding something, but not in a way that makes the character stupid. She's just, maybe it's a cultural thing, maybe because Anna grew up in another country, in another culture. Maybe it's that. Maybe it's just that Anna has a completely different take on things than we do. But for whatever it is, Paula is able to make Anna not understand what's going on exactly, but in a way that doesn't make her seem stupid. Just makes her, you see her just missing the mark a little bit. And that's a heck of a skill. You know, finding that was, you know, we found gold there, I think. You know, David's a great guy. He's one of the world's, you know, he's the definition of a great guy. Easygoing, laid back, shoot the breeze. He rolls with things well. He's a great guy to be in business with, a business partner with, because he doesn't get wound up very easy. He's got a nice even keel to him. And he's funny and a lot of fun. Yeah, he's just been great to work with, and he brings a wealth of knowledge about how TV and film is put together. That you know, he had 20 years of experience before. I think he's old. He's 74, 75 years old, David, and so he's had a lot of experience. He used to work with Buster Keaton back in the silent film days, so he brings that wealth of experience to the table. But yeah, you know, I've learned a lot about directing and producing from just hanging out with David, watching him work, asking him questions, and I think we've been very complimentary to each other over the years. Laura Lightbound is she's like a whiz kid. She's like one of those people who you go, boy, I wish if I had a brain like yours, I'd rule the world. You know, she knows how to line things up, make things work. She's a brilliant logician. And she understands, you know, there's a lot of people who watch a TV show have no idea the amount of business that goes on behind it. You know, dealing with unions and dealing with banks and filling out forms. Like, that's a stack of paperwork like that just to get a sandwich. It's an insane business. And if it wasn't for Laura, you know, I think my ideas would be like, they'd be scribbled down on paper and I'd be doing them as a play in my backyard. I was fascinated by how quickly this show seemed to have its legs. Like you mentioned, a show takes a while to find its groove and find its legs usually. The first two episodes that we shot, when we edited them together, I felt like this feels like it's season 2 or 3 at least of a show. It feels like it's up and running, and I was quite amazed. It just came together faster and better than I expected, and faster and better than I'd hoped. I try to be objective. Honestly, truly do. It's hard, but I was watching this going, this is my new favorite show. If I was out there in TV land, I would say, yeah, I got to be home by whatever, Wednesday at 8 or whenever it comes on. Or set the PVR to watch this show. I was amazed at how quickly it gelled, and it found its pace right away, and that's a huge testament to the actors.
Millie. I like Millie. I hope everybody does too, because she means well. Her first place to start off is happy. And that's so fun to play because she's a happy person, but she has the emotional capacity of a child, which helps her become a successful children's book author because she doesn't have to sit down and think. Now, if I was a kid, what would I want to read? She just sits down and goes, what do I want to read? So she doesn't have to take herself to a different spot. She's very childlike and means well, but in being childlike, she doesn't really know how to rein her emotions in. So when she's happy, she's overly happy. When she's sad, she's overly sad. When she's angry, she's overly angry, and she can be all those emotions in a split second because, like a child, her focus is pulled really quickly. And the people around her who care for her, personally and also financially, because she's very successful, want her to start reining it in because it's just getting more and more out of hand. So then she seeks some help, but she just looks at it as a good time because everything for Millie is a good time. Okay, her hiccups, first of all, are called hiccups because she doesn't like the term episodes. That's too heavy and too serious and too, mumbo jumbo for her. They're just hiccups. They just happen. She gets over them. Let's move on. But some people don't. So she blows up in a coffee shop because somebody is taking too long to make a decision about their coffee order because there's 50 million coffee choices. And she's basically, hopefully, speaking the mind of, everybody who's been in the line at the coffee shop, except, ironically, I'm usually the one that's holding the line up. I need a short, double shot, extra dry. I'm generally the one, me, Nancy. But Millie has had enough of this person and blows up. I mean, she has her financial security, which gives her a little bit of an edge in being allowed to behave this way. Otherwise, society or the people in her world wouldn't be able to put up with it. But yeah, I mean, she ends up going into spending the day in the office, and she turns the office upside down and just makes it a fun place to be, and which everybody would like to shake up their life in the office, I think, a bit. And yeah, she does kind of act on behalf of the people, but we're not looking at it as, this is the voice of the people kind of thing. It's not like that at all. It's a comedy, and it's theatrical license on the behavior. Millie, I think, has a good sense of who's good, who's a good person, and I think she knows that Stan is basically a very good person. She really does believe he knows this stuff because he speaks to her in a language that she can understand. When she's gone to psychologists or psychiatrists, I think they were getting too inside her head, and she found it kind of irritating. And, where Stan, because he's not equipped to do the job, has her doing things that are fun. He thinks they're helpful, but Millie just thinks they're a blast. So in that way, she thinks, well, this is perfect. He's helping me, and I'm having fun.
And a lot of times Millie is voicing frustrations that the audience probably has as well. I mean, who hasn't stood in line and, had some guy, whether it's at the bank machine or the coffee place and the coffee shop, and had somebody in front of them, taking way too much time. And there's other situations where I feel that she's reflecting what we all kind of feel, but we're too scared to say. And she's not afraid to say it. So there's no border. Whatever that mechanism inside us all is that stops us from yelling at somebody or really shouting out how we feel, that's gone with her. She just lets it fly. I think Stan is somebody who means well and wants to do a good job. He has a dream, like all of us. He has a dream of what he wants to do. And I don't know, we kind of talked loosely about his backstory, but we didn't really come down. At one point, maybe he was a bartender, or maybe he was working in a bank or something. I don't know where Brent is at in his own mind with, but to me, he had some kind of a job like a bartender that was a bit of a dead-end job. And he thought he could do something better with his life, and he had a dream, and he decided, gosh darn it, I'm going to follow my dream. And his dream was to be a life coach. And so he packed it all in, started his own business. And as with anything else, I think, you need a bit of luck in these endeavors. And he was lucky enough that Millie walked in through his door and became his client. And I think it's a marriage made in heaven in some ways. Well, Joyce is kind of the center of the action in some ways. She is the, maybe the eye of the storm, and everything swirls around Joyce in the office, and that she's the person who really is together and organized, and, all these crazy people are whirling around her. I think Taylor's lazy. I mean, when I think of Taylor, he's just lazy, right? He's a lazy guy who doesn't want to have to work. He'd rather be pursuing his passions, which are basically girls. And maybe, he's got little thing, like in one of these episodes, he's trying to get a Mo bobblehead, Mo from the Three Stooges. So he's got these little diversions that he kind of sinks himself into. And he's shallow and he's lazy. But he's funny. He's really one of the great comic characters, I think, in the show. But Crystal hasn't seen much of the world. She's been protected, brought up in a sort of maybe a little bit of a bubble, and now her father has realized that, well, I better get her out there and get her to meet people and get more connected with the real world. So he got her this job at Joyce's. And she's very, she hasn't really had any exposure to people outside of her own kind of rich little bubble. Like she might be, we didn't really discuss it too much, but the idea was that she was sort of maybe a West Van girl who had gone to private school and, came from a lot of money and now has to go out in the real world and deal with people. And she hasn't had to do that before. So there's great, gold mine of comedy in that. So, and Emily plays it really well, so.
Joyce is definitely one of the straight characters in the show, and she's challenged daily by all of the quirky characters in our show, and she basically is just on people all the time to get the job done and get it done right. And she, especially with Millie, she deals with Millie with kid gloves. I think because Millie is so childlike, and she's my most successful author, that with Millie I handle her a bit more delicately than I do some of the other employees that I have. Millie and Joyce go way back. They've known each other for a long time, and they've grown in this business together. Millie is, as much as Joyce loves Millie and adores her, Millie constantly challenges Joyce's patience because she's high-strung, she's all over the map, she can't focus. Joyce is constantly having to reel her in, get her to focus, and get her work done. She's always late with her manuscript, so Joyce is kind of always on her back because she cares so much about her as a friend, but Millie is also Joyce's bread and butter, so. Well, at first, Joyce assumed that all along for quite a while that Stan was a doctor. And in a recent episode, she finds out that Stan actually has no formal education whatsoever. Joyce is not impressed. Joyce comes from an academic background, and degrees are very important to her. And when she finds out he has no formal training, she's not happy about him working with Millie at all. But as things progress and she sees how Stan is really helping Millie, I kind of let that slide.
I'm David Ingram. I play Taylor Rymes on the show. He's a literary agent representing Millie Upton, the children's author. He's got a few other clients as well that he's tried to get into Joyce's publishing house, but they're all sort of off the radar, people that, off the radar that Joyce wants nothing to do with. So his primary focus is Millie and making sure that she's okay, because he knows that she can be a handful, and he really does care about her and wants the best for her. He's not necessarily the best person to do it for her, but his heart's in the right place with her. Someone had written in one of the breakdowns that he was slick but useless, and I'm like, yeah, that's actually pretty close. I think of him as sort of a big kid. He's got this air that he puts on where I sort of think he thinks women think he's God's gift to women, so he'll sort of play the role. I don't know that he necessarily believes it underneath it, but he certainly will adopt the posture and will flirt with anything that happens to look in his direction, usually very unsuccessfully. I think that Millie keeps Taylor around because they have a connection. She flies off the handle. She is very childlike with her interests and her exuberances, that would, like playing hockey in her apartment, and Taylor gets that, and because he's sort of like a big kid as well, I think they really relate to each other in that way.
Crystal works in the Haddison house, publishing house. She's a receptionist there. She feels she doesn't really need to be working. She's from a very wealthy family. She's not so much refined rich as she is the reason old money disdains the nouveau riche. So Crystal's boss, Joyce, would probably say that Crystal's lazy, but I think she's more suffering from ennui. Crystal's more of a shopper than a worker, so she's a little bit of a fish out of water in the workplace milieu. She has kind of, I guess, some strange expectations of what work is or what it should be. I think Crystal has a need to prove herself in the world. I think she really does want to be respected to some extent, and I think wealthy people have a little bit of insecurity, especially like as a wealthy kid. You're given this place of privilege in the world, and she kind of wants to know that she deserves to be there. So although she is, she doesn't get her work done and she's kind of bored, I think she still has, a little bit of respect for what she's doing, and she wants to prove that she can do it well. So, she just doesn't know how to do it well. She just doesn't have the skills. I think Crystal thinks that Millie's a little crazy. I think Millie's inner child is on all the medications like Ritalin, Risperidone, and if there's something she's not on, she probably should be.
this is one of the things I love most about this character, is that if you just read sometimes the scenes, it's impossible that she would never be angry, because Stan is one of the worst husbands in the world. But I think she sees past all that behavior. She sees his soul and how noble and warm and great he is. So I think she's a very layered, profound character that can really find the love for a man like him. Yes, but she's very patient. Like I said, you're a gardener, you plant a tree, you won't get fruit right away. And I think Anna sees Stan as a flower that she has to water. It's because he's gonna flourish, and I mean, she's been waiting for him to get a patient or a client. He calls him a client. He finally gets a client, so it's like, yeah, it's worth it. It's the patience is paying off with him getting a job.